know what I love? It's sitting around a fire pit with your family. But you know what can really ruin it? Is smoke. And I'm gonna fix that. And I did 3 years ago when I built this, the first DIY smokeless fire pit built on YouTube. But I don't like it anymore. So I'm gonna remake it just like the Romans would, using concrete. Welcome to Hacksman, y'all. Originally, I was gonna build the concrete form for this fire pit out of wood, but then it hit me. Not everyone likes working with wood, and I'd feel obligated to store a big wooden form for years to come when I could build this out of XPS foam and freely throw it away when I'm finished. I know that I'm going to be 16 inches tall, but I need the circumference. My diameter is 52 inches. I multiply that times pi, which is 3.14. I come up to 163.25 inches. These pieces are 96 inches long, minus 96 inches. 67.25. So I'm gonna need to attach one 96-inch piece and one 67.25-inch piece. I went in and cut off this extra piece that I'm gonna use kind of as a mending plate, you could call it. Whenever I did the original smokeless fire pit, when I built the forms for the top, I used regular spray contact adhesive, and you have to be very careful because it'll eat this foam. But since then, I have found this 3M 78, and it is specifically on polystyrene foam, and it works like a champ. I used it whenever I built the camper. So that's what we're gonna use. If your foam sheets have that clear plastic sheathing on top of it, make sure you pull that off like I did earlier. Otherwise, that's gonna, affect how well this holds. I think it probably would have been a good idea if I'd have actually tried this and found out if it actually worked before I just decided to start filming. But hey, you're on this ride along with me. Is it gonna work? I have no idea. Just like regular contact cement, by the way, you just have to let each piece that you've sprayed dry to become slightly tacky, and then you can put them together. I did that backwards. Luckily, I was able to take it back apart and flip it around to get everything on the right side. Now I just need to add an extra layer around the outside for extra strength. And the good thing is, after that big mishap, surely we're done having problems and it should be smooth sailing. Surely after that mishap, we should have no more problems and it should be smooth sailing. Thanks to my Tyvek tape. Use duct tape if you like. It finally dawned on me whenever I realized, hey, I've got to actually make a smaller circle to fit inside that big one. And if I had a problem with that, how am I gonna get this one to work? Heat, my friend, heat is the answer. By using the heat gun, I was able to make this bend and actually hold its shape. Shoot, y'all better redneckerize. You didn't think it would work? Please. I mean, it's amazing what some ratchet straps will do for you. And ain't going nowhere. Is it gonna last throughout the entire process? These are gonna be my air holes, and these are 2-inch pipe. I actually thought this all out, and I bought, check it out, I went out and bought a brand new hole saw so that I could pass the pipe through nice and easy. And then I, like an idiot, put the ratchet straps on before. So they're just wedged in there, but they'll be fine. I've also driven some pieces of rebar down and some wooden stakes to help keep the circle shape. I leveled everything up, then drove stakes around the outside of the perimeter circle. So I'm on the inside perimeter, outside on the outside. Now I'm driving some rebar stakes in to add strength to the fire pit itself. This bottle is filled with vegetable oil, and this is going to be my release agent. Look at all that concrete. My back is just screaming with anticipation. Except today, old Uncle Hacks has a trick up his sleeve. Feel free to mix this by hand or use, one of those traditional little small cement mixers. But I gotta tell you, this mud mixer is freaking amazing. Mud Mixer claims that their machine is twice as fast as mixing by hand. I think they're full of baloney because this thing easily is 4 times as fast. It looks like it's coming out of there slow, and you think, how could that possibly work well? But you can barely keep up with it. This thing saved us an incredible amount of time. Combined with a strong wife, you can tackle just about any project you'd want with this thing. I am I mean, it's probably one of my favorite tools that I've gotten over the last several years. It's powered by an electric motor, so I just brought a battery bank out and plugged it into that to make things super simple. All you do is drop the bags in the top. The mud mixer mixes it automatically. It's got a built-in hose, so I could rinse my hands off, rinse the mud mixer off when the project was done. And hey, if you're interested, I'll put a link in the description for Mud Mixer. I don't have an affiliate link, but they did send me this machine, so thanks to them, I got lots of concrete projects coming up. I used a Sawzall or a reciprocating saw if you're fancy. Pinkies up, everybody, to vibrate the concrete and get the bubbles to the top. Before going any further, let's touch on some vital elements crucial for smokeless fire pit success. A fire has specific needs: fuel and oxygen. In the case of a fire pit, wood serves as the fuel. But why do you get the smoke? Have you ever seen a vehicle blowing thick black smoke out the exhaust? Well, that happens when the fuel to air ratio is off balance. The engine is getting too much fuel and not enough air. And so the black smoke coming out the exhaust is unburned fuel. Similarly, a fire pit produces smoke due to incomplete combustion. A smokeless fire pit operates differently, however, featuring an outer chamber that allows fresh air to enter from the low exterior holes and become superheated as it ascends. Now, the hot air escapes through the top holes around the upper perimeter of the smokeless fire pit. That creates a secondary burn that consumes the unburned fuel or smoke. Now, the holes at the bottom also let air in to feed the fire. Now, one component most people miss is the top ring, which directs airflow over the fire. And I addressed that in my video 3 years ago, so we want to make sure that we pay attention to all of those aspects to make sure that we have the most successful smokeless fire pit experience. This is the fire pit ring I'm going to be using. It's the same type I used 3 years ago on the first smokeless fire pit build. I like this one for a few reasons. It's the cheapest one you can get. It's 12 inches tall as opposed to a lot of them are 10 inches tall. And it's got this, this ring around the top that starts to create that upper ring, that rim like I talked about earlier. It does cost 30% more than it did 3 years ago, but concrete is twice as expensive as it was 3 years ago. So I guess that's not terrible. I don't know what you call these things. A soft tape measure, a flexible tape. I don't know. It's what I'm using, and I'm going to mark out every 3 inches around the top of this fire pit where I want to drill a hole. Now, I showed you a few years ago, if you don't have one of these flexible tapes, that you can actually just wrap blue tape around the fire ring, take it off, and then make all of your measurements on there. Then you can reattach the tape back to the fire pit ring, and you'll have exactly where you want each hole drilled, which is going to be a 1 1/8 inch hole, and I'm using this Milwaukee step bit. I love these step bits for this, and the Milwaukee ones just work the best. They stay sharp the longest to me. Kind of nervous about taking it off because I'm not sure if I vibrated it enough to really fill it all in really good. It's one of those things that hits you at like 3 in the morning. Did I do that right? Am I smart enough? Am I good enough? Oh, dude. No, I did not. My fears have not been assuaged. Oh, man. You can see right here where the mix was too dry, and that's my fault because I didn't want it to have too much water. The worst thing you can do to concrete is put too much water in it. So I was trying to leave it dry, but then I didn't agitate it enough to get it to come together to where the whole thing would be kind of smooth like it is up here. The good thing is, that's the look that Kim wants. She wants that aged look, right, Kim?
Yeah, I like the aged look.
Okay, but so there's your lesson. Make sure that you vibrate the concrete really well. However, I can still take some concrete and smooth over this, and it should turn out just fine. I'm going to make the top molds out of this XPS foam as well. You see here I've made a compass, which is just a straight piece of wood. I've drilled a hole out for a nail, and then my two diameters are going to be 53.5, 28.5. So my two radiuses are 26.75 and 14.25 inches away from that nail. I drew this square out. I've got it here on this corner. This is just the way I like to do it. That way I know I've got a perfectly square corner to work from. For the base of these molds, I used 1.5 inch thick XPS foam. When I did it in the past, I used the 1/2 inch, just like I'm going to use for the sides, and it works perfectly fine. I just thought this would give it some extra strength. Now I'm cutting out 4-inch tall pieces to wrap around the sides, and that's because I want these to be 2.5 inches thick overall. As you see, once again, I've just applied the 3M78 adhesive to each piece, let it dry, and I've just got to assemble everything now and cut it square. I used some quick set caulk on the corners just to make sure that none of the water runs out from the concrete, and to make the corners a little more rounded. If you want a smooth finish, skip this step, but this is a trick we used to use when I worked in the precast concrete business like 25 years ago. You take some baking soda, add some water to it, crumble it up, mix it, and you want it to be where it'll fall apart, but it still sticks together really well. And then bring out your inner chimpanzee. Just go crazy. I think they like to throw underhanded, but you do what works for you. You do want to make sure that when it hits this, that it splatters a little bit. You just don't want clumps. You want kind of a snow look. For some added strength, I'd like to add some rebar to this, but I don't want to put 1/2 inch rebar, and nobody near me sold 1/4 inch rebar. So I just went and bought some 1/4 inch all thread, and this stuff bends pretty easy. So I'm going to actually bend it to the shape, and then I'll just cut it with these bolt cutters. And I'll just lay right in there. It's been raining for a few days, but I finally got a break in the rain, and I'm going to pour these on our back porch in case it starts raining again, much to Kim's dismay. Unfortunately, that means I got to go old school on this. No mud mixer. I am the mud mixer. Take that, thank you. Now, if you did use the baking soda method, make sure you don't just throw the concrete mix down in here. You want to lay it down on top of the baking soda, and then you want to gently smush it down. Yeah, smush. Gently, gently smush. Work it into those corners, okay? Not like you did on the fire pit. Genius. With the form filled halfway up, I went ahead and added the all thread, not to be confused with the all spark, which brings transformers to life. While I had some concrete mixed, I went ahead and took some extra out in a little container and filled in these spots that were bad on the fire pit that I didn't have the concrete wet enough on. It's great if you can use this without any aggregate in it, but obviously when you buy the mix, it's going to have the aggregate in it. But no big deal. I just rubbed it on there, and then I took a damp sponge, just kind of how you would work with tile, and went over it. And when it dries, it'll look just the same as the rest pretty much. Close enough. 24 hours later. You should really let these set for 2 days in the mold before trying to take them out, but you know, the tube, I got to do it for the tube. What can I say? I got to get these things out. Oh, so you know what? I forgot to put the vegetable oil on it too. Don't forget your vegetable oil. Don't eat that mess though, it's bad for you. Man, I can't believe I did that. Totally forgot. Could be here a while. Now, of course, the real reason why I did it this way was because I like to show you what not to do. I think that's the best way to teach, really. You know, if I intentionally screw up and I show you what you don't want to do, I mean, I think that helps you. You know, I do this because I care, and because I'm stupid. 3 hours later. I've had some pretty good brain farts in my time. Some real stinkers. This might be one of my top 5 right here. Forgetting to put the mold release, aka vegetable oil, in these molds. However, they came out eventually. Now I'm just rinsing them off and getting the styrofoam off. With everything dry, I can go ahead and start assembling the whole fire pit. Now, I'm not actually leveling anything up here. I'm just making sure that the inner ring is level with the outer ring. Later, I'm going to go ahead and stain this entire fire pit, but for now, I just want to get it put together and test everything out. Now, whenever you use one of these smokeless fire pits, it's important that you get it very hot and get the sides hot. If you build a tiny little fire in this, it is not going to work. After about 15 to 20 minutes, the sides are good and hot and it's working as it should. And you'll notice I've got a lot of wood in there. I built a monster fire in here. Do not build a tiny fire. Guys, I'm not done with this fire pit yet, and I've got even bigger plans for this entire fire pit patio. I'll put that video right here when it comes out, but until then, something equally as amazing will go there. Now I just gotta figure out where I can store this. Hate to throw it away.